Tell your friends. Tell your friends about Hooks and Ladders, but also about songstudio.ca. You can get all kinds of information about songwriting, tips, and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, like, follow, and subscribe. That's what we need. That's what you need.
Hey, welcome to Hooks and Ladders. What you're about to see is part of what we did at the SongStudio workshop in Toronto in July 2022. There'll be lots more to see. We're just going to roll it out a little bit at a time. So sit back and enjoy. And if you want to know more about SongStudio, visit www.songstudio.ca and check us out. Enjoy.
Yeah. All right. So you're writing songs, whatever comes out. What about playing those songs? Because when you're playing with Justin Page, you're doing his songs.
I was only in Page for about a year, and I was unhappy because when they did the album, they only used me. They used a guy named Lee DiCarlo to produce it, and he was sort of attached to that Bob Ezrin, Alice Cooper-ish kind of world.
Okay.
And DiCarlo only wanted, like, he was going to use Dick Wagner and Steve Hunter to play the lead guitars.
Yeah.
So I only got to play like rhythm guitars.
Oh, okay.
And I was unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, that come on, like, and like, not that Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner weren't great guitar players, they were, but I thought I could cut that same kind of grass. So anyhow, I wanted to be in a progressive band anyways.
Right.
So a friend of mine, Denton Young, and I started up a thing called Act 3, and we did Yes medleys and King Crimson, and it was wild, you know. But of course, it was Ontario bars, so the first set of the night we'd have to do Eagles covers, and you know, it was like medleys that had Some Kind of Wonderful by Grand Funk into Can't Get Enough by Bad Company.
Bad Company, right?
That kind of shit, you know.
Right.
But we were good. It was a trio, and it was a good. Chris Brockway was a phenomenally great bass player, good singer.
He's a great player. I played with him only one.
And he was a good writer, and so we were writing together.
Oh, okay.
And writing things that were progressive-minded, but you know,
still had choruses.
We had some original material to play as we, you know, the last set of the night kind of thing.
Right.
But then the Triumph guys, Brockway quit in a huff, and then the kind of the magic was gone, and the Triumph guys came and saw me playing at the Hollywood Tavern on Queensway in Etobicoke.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, and this makes it sound like we played Toronto a lot, but you know, we usually played places like, you know, Haileybury and Wallaceburg, and you know, the Riviera Motor Hotel in Windsor. You know, so and they were sort of B lounges, mostly shitholes, and there was a lot of smoking of dope going on. You know, I couldn't smoke as much as I would have liked because of my voice, and 6 nights a week plus a matinee.
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah. So, but then the Triumph thing, and I actually sort of quit drugs and stuff, because the Triumph thing was a very physical thing for me.
Right.
Jumping around and running around on stage and singing. And
the idea with Triumph was, in addition to the music, was also like a big show, like big lights, and it was probably more than any other band you'd been in.
Yeah, and that was all Gil. Like,
yeah,
the drummer Gil, he really wanted it to be a big production kind of thing. And the Act 3 had been a sort of a kind of, we liked Queen, and we kind of liked that very dramatic flair kind of.
Okay.
We used to come out in the second set of the night, and we had a giant roll of Mac Tack that was in the truck. Do you guys know what that is? Like the peel and stick kind of stuff. And it was like silver. And so we would cut little tiny eyelids and put them on our eyelids. And so if I was just looking at you, you wouldn't see. But if I blinked, you'd go, what the was that? His eyes are silver.
That's hilarious.
And so under the lights on stage, it was like people in the bars would be going, holy oh man, their eyes are silver. You know. So we had this thing about sort of wanting to be like showbiz.
That's amazing.
And so the Triumph thing was kind of like, well, this is going to be great. We're going to have cop car lights. And
right, because it was an escalation from that, where you already were. Yeah. But what about like Gil was writing? Was Levine writing?
Yeah, no, Levine never. He and I wrote one song once for the first album.
Okay.
And I wrote probably 93% of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even with Gil was the kind of writer that, like, he would have his dictaphone in his car, and he'd be driving along, and he'd be going like, I want it to go like a... Street Fighter. And so I would get these little tapes and go, oh, okay. I think he just wants like block,
like eighth notes,
like power chords,
yeah, yeah.
So all the stuff was like these. Which I liked Deep Purple. So
yeah, so that, yeah.
It was okay. Like,
Yeah.
I went, yeah, that's cool. I can do that.
Yeah.
And so, but that, Gil, he grew a little bit as a writer.
Yeah.
And he would surprise me sometimes. He would come up with things like, I don't know how many of you know Triumph stuff. But there was a song called Fight the Good Fight.
Right.
And it had like an intro that was like a, oh, geez, it was like a, oh, geez, what was that chord? And so he had this little sequence that he'd written on the piano. And I went, that's cool. No. But he couldn't loop it. He didn't know how to get back to the home key. So I had to come up with the idea of this G minor 7 to a C to lead you back to the D minor. Well, it's just a sequence, right? So, but that was the intro to like this. And he didn't write that either, except he did because we were in the studio and he went, okay, I want on the snare, I want to go ka 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 ka. And I went, okay, I'll come up with some chords for that rhythm. And so that's what that was.
Wow.
And you can hear that it's got that hack. It's like Led Zeppelin. Boom,
Yeah.
cap, boom, cap, boom. Yeah.
Did he share the co-writing with you?
No, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, good,
But,
good.
well, don't get me started on all that shit.
No, I won't.
Like,
I won't. But I'm just
when we first wrote songs for the first 3 albums,
yeah.
if you brought an idea down, that was your song.
Okay.
So there were it was like 50-50, Gil and Rik.
Right.
But then the third album really broke, and it broke in the States. And I'd written Lay It on the Line and Hold On, and they both crossed over from FM radio to AM radio.
Yeah.
So I got big checks.
Yeah.
And the band was at a point where the other guys were doing a lot of the business of the band. They were literally managing the band.
Okay.
And they were sitting in a position where the money was, if they wanted to start fudging their expense reports and, making weird things happen, they could do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, if they resent the fact that I'm starting to make, and at the same time, the Police were starting to have issues where Sting was making all the songwriting money and, Andy Summers and Stuart Copeland were going like, what are we, chopped liver? Yeah. So I went, this could be a problem. So I literally went to them and I said, here's my checks, put them into the band's accounts for songwriting. And from now on, everything we write, we split 3 ways. You guys good with that? And they went, oh, Rik, very generous of you. And it was very generous of
Very
me.
generous.
Very generous of me.
Yeah.
But I was doing it to try and stave off the fact that, I hoped that there wouldn't be trouble with money
Yeah.
as the band's success. And it didn't work.
Then it did,
I still around 1984, 85.
Yeah. No good deed, as they say.
Well, I managed to make it go from about 80, from 1979 to 84, 85.
Right. Without incident.
And then I was like, I got to get out. I got to get out.
Right.
How do I get out?
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to do that.
On a much smaller scale, I had a similar thing happen in my band where the other guys, once I got my first SOCAN check, which was, minimal really by any standard except by our standard at the time, was significant. and suddenly they wanted to be songwriters. Now, they could have been songwriters before. There was no one stopping them.
Yes.
But the thing that inspired them was the SOCAN check.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And the fact that I got one, and they were like, "You're getting that for what?" And the bass player said, "I played bass on those songs." I'm like, "Yeah, and you got paid to play bass." But anyway, so I decided for the next record that we'd write it together.
Yeah.
And then didn't stave off anything. Then they had entitlement, because then they could write together and they could veto my ideas. Meanwhile, I had been the main songwriter coming up and bringing in the ideas and bringing in whole songs. But then they were saying, "Yeah, I don't really like that."
Yeah.
Which I understand, but before they would have liked it. It was just that they weren't cut in on. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
No.
bands are a very weird dynamic.
Yeah, and at Humber, when I was doing directed studies, there would be situations where there would be, like, some of the students had got together and formed a band.
Yeah.
And so now they were using their band to play their recitals, and now the recording project was coming in. So there was, of all the years that I did it, and I would say it was probably 8 or 9 years that I did that program, there was one band. And they're still playing now. Oh, am I going to remember them? The Monowhales. Do you guys know of the Monowhales here on the Toronto scene?
They're fantastic.
They were in the beginning. They were called Ginger Ale and the Monowhales.
Yeah, Ginger Ale and the
because the
Monowhales,
front girl, Sally.
Yeah, Sally Shaw.
Sally Shar. Yeah, and she was something, man.
Yeah,
she was in my business class and sort of directed studies.
Yeah,
and then in my songwriting classes. Oh my God, and she was, she was great. And but the guys in the band were good too.
Yep.
And so at one point I had to sit them down and say, "You're going to have to figure this out, because this will become a problem later if you don't figure out how you're going to split these things up."
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
In one of my so Rik, we'll go back to the narrative in a minute, but Rik, when he was teaching at Humber, after we'd done the workshop, he wasn't going to be available for some classes, so he asked if I would sub for him, and then asked if I would teach a class there. So I began teaching a class at Humber, and I asked in one of my, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, so I'm telling you now. In one of my first classes, I said, "How many people have written songs?" In the whole class. And I said, pick the first person. I said, "What did you write? Words, music?" And he said, "Drums." And I said, "So wait, you wrote the drum part?" And he said, "Well, I was in a band, and we share everything, so I wrote the drums, so I'm a songwriter." And I said, and I thought, okay, well, how do I teach this? Because I got it, my approach is words and melody and then chords, like in that order, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I said, and I had this flash of inspiration, and I don't know, I want you to tell me if this is good or not, because I did this in the moment and I've done it since. I'm going to do it for you guys. I said this. I said, I am thinking of a song right now, and I want you to tell me what it is. And the drum part goes like this. And somebody said, "Well, that could be a million songs." And I said, "Yes, exactly." He probably said it like that too. And
you made that kid feel so bad.
No. Then I said, "That's true. It could be a million songs." Okay, so I'll narrow it down. I'll do the bass line. Doom, 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 and somebody said, "Well, that could be 10,000 songs." And I said, "Yes, exactly." And then I said, "Here, I'll sing a couple of notes. Yesterday." And somebody said, "Well, that's Yesterday by the Beatles." And I said, "Yes, it's one word and 2 notes." I've sang 2 of them twice, so it's 3 notes really, and it's the words and the melody, except in extenuating circumstances. Of course, there are drum parts that are very unique and idiosyncratic, and there are bass parts, and there are dun 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 dun, there are guitar lines and so forth, of course. But it's the words and the melody, and I don't think any of them got anything from it, but I enjoyed it.
No, I think it's true, and I had prepped some stuff which we haven't even touched on yet.
We're gonna get to it.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna segue into one now.
Okay.
Just because your story, this is one of the things I wanted to touch on. So you know how you go to, some people do these things. It's like a song circle, and it's like, oh, I wish I wrote this.
Yeah.
So here's a song that most professional songwriters go, oh, I wished I'd written this. And in fact, Paul McCartney, this is one of Paul McCartney's absolute favorite songs. So we start with, I'm going to play the bass line. Okay? So, so it's like, that's the bass line for the verse. Okay? And you hear that and you go, uh-huh. Like, I don't get it. So now you got to add the chords. And this is where the genius begins. Because the bass line was based on fifths. These chords are in second inversion. So it goes. Oh. God only knows what I'd be without you. I may not always love you, but as sure as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. Holy shit. Like, that is so good. And it's the melody that just puts this, ay, 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 ay. But lyric, okay? Let's just look at the lyric for a second. It starts and it's a love song. And it goes, I may not always love you. The first line of lyric in a love song is, I may not always love you. But as sure as there are stars above you, now the melody is going up. You never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. That note right there is the best note that could possibly be for that construction. And that's what good writing is. That you work until you find the exact right thing in the exact right place, and you put all the stuff around it to make sure that that happens. So that whole chord progression is built so that it can go, God only knows what I'd be without you. Rest point. Like, he finally comes to a result. But all of these chords, like if you think about harmonic construction, a chord that's sitting over its fifth is unresolved. You're not sure where this is going to go. If I play it like this, if I play it over its third, it's going somewhere. If I play it over its fifth, it's kind of sitting like, what's happening here? So the chord hasn't necessarily given you any sense of where we're going. I may not always love you. What was that second chord? Yeah. So it's, I may not always love you. This one's over its fifth too. So it's not very resolved. And now you get this. Is this the home key? No. But as sure as there are stars above you, this is a dominant 7 chord sitting over its dominant 7th. So that it can set up this, which is now the verse has moved up a full tone. This is fucking crazy good. So the whole verse structure has led us to this moment. Title, God only knows what I'd be without you. And so we're moving back down. And there is the key. But it didn't start there. It started here. It ends here. And you go, okay. I think that guy might be a genius. He's
pretty good.
He might be good at smoking dope and coming up with stuff, Anyways, and McCartney thought that was, as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And McCartney, it might be hyperbole, but I think it's probably true. He had #1 songs for 27 consecutive years. And he thinks that's a good song. So when you guys are thinking about writing, what you should do is like go around and like find out what are the greatest songs ever written, and then just learn them. You know, there's a reason why Leonard Cohen would say, "Oh, you know, the Tower of Song is Hank Williams is many floors above me." Like Hank Williams was an incredibly good instinctive writer where the lyric is married to the way the melody and the chords play. The chords are a lot simpler, but than that. That's pretty complex.
That's very sophisticated.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a few levels above most of you. And I don't mean that to put you down. I'm just saying that's pretty sophisticated. You need to be a pretty good piano player to come up with voicings like that and then that melody on top.
We hope you've enjoyed this little taste of the SongStudio workshop in Toronto in July 2022. Stay tuned for more.